Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Old Bearded Gaming. It's time for our morning dungeon crawl. We're getting back into Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. We're going to pick back up where we left off with our Minotaur Fighter and hopefully get another level or so completed here. Give you guys a little bit more exposition as to what all's going on with the game, things to look out for, and hopefully you guys are finding this entertaining. Looks like there's been a slight update to the trunk, so we're going to tell it yes. We're going to go ahead and update. This happens when you're playing on the newest releases, so if there's minor tweaks, changes, etc., it's going to ask to convert that over to reflect those changes, mid-game, which is actually pretty kind of cool. All right, so we had just cleared out floor one. There really isn't much to do here. I did want to showcase a feature slash function of this game, which I find is really actually pretty interesting. So you can hit Control F, and it is, as one would expect in many other apps and functions, it's a find. It's a search function. So I could type in here something specific that I'm looking for, or something a little bit more generic. So let's type in weapon. And it's going to show me every weapon that I've discovered so far, and more specifically, where it is. So I have one in my inventory, obviously, carried that war axe. We see in the results elsewhere, these are all weapons that we left on the ground in Dungeon Floor 1 here. Okay, items on the ground do not decay. They don't disappear. They're there forever, which is actually pretty handy once we get a little bit deeper into the dungeon because inventory management is kind of a real thing, particularly later in game, and more particularly, if you're like me, sometimes a little bit of a pack rat. Like, I don't know what's super good and what's not, and maybe something becomes relevant or good later, particularly if you're doing a various wing off of one of the other kind of little side dungeon areas, etc. Maybe you're getting ready to go down into the slime area. You want more acid corrosion resistance, etc. Maybe you've got some gear that'll help with that, but you don't need it for the full time, so you carry it around. But we can create kind of a centralized little location, a base, if you will, and drop piles of stuff. So we have a pile of weapons, we have a pile of armor. Same with maybe some scrolls that we don't necessarily always need to be carrying around, but could be useful later. Stuff like that. So pretty handy. More handy as well is that you can click on it and it will take you there. So like, for example, let's go here to where this dagger of speed is. It shows me where that is on the map. It readjusted here. It's way up into the north, of this area here. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. This also works for things like shops and the inventories in shops, if you've seen them, right? So there's a lot of power to this. In fact, you can do a question mark here, and it will show you some of the different query strings that you can put. So if you're looking for something that has maybe plus regen on it, or maybe has some resist to fire, or what have you, right? You can do searches for specifically just those things, and it will show you everything that has that attribute to it. Very, very, very cool function and feature in this game. So let's get on down. Let's get back into a little bit more gameplay. We got a Scarf on the Ground Goblin over here. We're going to go smack this guy. Not a problem. In fact, let's take a quick peek at our allocations. We're still kind of doubling down on the axes, and actually, as I'm kind of thinking about it, I'm going to turn off dodging and stealth for just a little bit. We're going to go 66% into axes, into fighting. My thought process here is let's get ahead of the hit curve, so to speak. There's a lot of math in this game, as one would suspect, and I do not know all the calculations. I don't have that immediately off the top of my head. A lot of that information can be detailed in the wiki, but I do know getting a little bit more into our chance to hit, right, is going to help the leveling process and the survivability a lot more. When you miss, it's kind of felt, right? The impact is there. So we want to minimize that and mitigate that to the extent that, we'll kind of lopside our abilities here a bit in favor of doing that. And then we can always come back and start learning some of these other things. So I think we'll do that for just a little bit. Let's go take a peek at this scarf. Ooh, Scarf of Resistance. I like that. We're using the comma to pick that up. You notice it wasn't highlighted green. It's not part of my auto pickup. Again, that is a function, a setting that we can change. And then a capital W for wear. So we have two scarves. I'm going to wear that Scarf of Resistance. And now if I do a Shift 5 or the percentage sign, we get a nice little summary here. Most of all of this information at the top, it's duplicated over here in the top right corner, so we normally see all of that. But we can see all the gear that we have right here on the right-hand side. But we also see these little hash marks, okay? So putting on that scarf gave us both cold and fire resistance, one level of it, which is super awesome. That's great. Other information that we see here, if we had any of these effects, you would see a little color change and mark here. Willpower is super important, particularly later in the game. That's what kind of helps determine if you resist spells that are cast at you. And more importantly, if you resist getting, I'm going to call it catapulted, for lack of a better word, into a dimension called the Abyss. And the Abyss is an interesting place. It's seen some changes over the years and over the releases. But to my understanding, at least right now, there is still not any experience to be had for killing things in there. It's an endless dimension, right? Like you can just keep wandering and wandering. Monsters get, pretty bad in there. But if you were, late game, you're looking to grind or whatnot, you could do that. And then that kind of got taken away, by not rewarding any experience for killing in there. And the thought process is, and this is true of the entirety of this game, is that there shouldn't really be a grind, right? We shouldn't have to grind stuff out. It should be a more organic and kind of flowing gameplay, which I think is actually kind of refreshing. It goes against my nature. I am very much a grind-oriented type of person. I like doing what I need to do, even if it's mundane and restrictive, to kind of get those edges in games. But you know what? It doesn't seem to bother me in this one. And take that for what it is. Additionally, there's some information here about hit point regen and magic point regen. Getting regen up is super useful and handy to be able to just passively gain some health back as we're taking steps without having to rest. So lots of cool information there. We're going to continue to use our auto explore and just kind of look around, kill stuff. In future videos, and here, I'm going to pause for a quick second because this was interesting. We had 3 enemies around us. Because we're using the axe, we're getting some AoE. So you see that, I'm not just single target one hitting enemies. Both of the 2 remaining alive guys have their health bars depleted a bit, and then of course the one mob is dead. But I also started to take some damage there, and I don't know if you caught it or not. I didn't stop my actions fast enough. I had a little green teardrop in the top right corner over my sprite. And that indicated that I was poisoned from that snake. One of the nice things about this game is you can just take your hands off the keyboard. just stop what you're doing when things get kind of crazy. In the earlier parts of the game, it feels more like an adventure, type of hack and slash type of a game, or at least it can, particularly with certain species and background combinations. But definitely later in the game, and this is where we get ourselves into trouble. The game is really more of a strategy game than it is anything else. It's looking at the screen, knowing what you have, knowing what they have, and what the right move tactically is going to be to handle the situation. So we're early in this game. We're early in our runs. It's when I'm faced with a situation like this, I can take a look, see what potions I have. I have a might potion. So absolutely I can pop that and start doing some really crazy damage. It's not going to help with my healing or anything, but it can let me finish these guys off and survive. That is a option. Another option would be to, we don't have any scrolls to read. Another option would be to run away. We can absolutely, do that. I don't think, in fact, let's take a step here. As we're backing away, see, the snake is swinging at us as we're moving, so it's faster than we are, right? But I am now out of range of that goblin, so really just the snake to contend with. So now it's a 1-to-1, right? And that kind of improves my ability to not take as much damage per turn. So now I'm going to swing at the snake. We missed. I'm going to back up, and see, now I'm in kind of a tight spot here because that snake is still getting an attack round in. I think we're just going to have to go for it. If I take too much more damage, we'll pop that potion for sure. All right, so now we're back down to a 1-on-1, and boom, we survived. We're rewarded with experience for all of our efforts. That's fantastic. We reached level 3, and now we get to pick what attribute we want to put some points in. So we take a look over here. we're presented with strength, intelligence, and dex. We have a lot of strength. Minotaur's super beefy, right? I like putting a little bit into dex in the earlier game. It's going to help with things like dodging. It's going to help with stealth. We don't really get a lot of benefit from stealth, especially when we're wearing armor and whatnot, and that goes towards our encumbrance rating. And we'll get more deep into that as the game goes on. But for the early, couple pieces here, I'm going to put in dex. And the Minotaur has a kind of a 50-50 chance of either giving you a strength or a dex as well. In this case, it also gave us a dex, so we actually got 2 dexterity points for that selection there. So now we're going to hit 5 on the keyboard, which is a longer rest, and actually that brought a guy into play. We're going to keep resting, hit points fully restored, and we're going to go back to our auto explorer. There he is. We're going to smack him down. Another snake. We're going to beat this down. There we are. We're poisoned. Now, poison has different degrees of potency. Right now, this is level 1 poison. It's really not all that serious. There's nothing else around us. We're not in danger. It'll go away in just a second. If we had identified cure pots, we could use one for sure. We're not doing that, and we don't have any that are identified yet. So, but if we were to keep getting more poison, which is a thing, you'd see 2 teardrops there, kind of off-center of each other. And you can get up to level 3. 3 can be super dangerous, especially if you don't have enough health, enough hit points. Because every step you take, you're going to be losing health. It will kill you. Poison will kill you in this game. It would require some means of curing it or offsetting the effects of it, right? So you could use cure potions, obviously. That's the most obvious one. But if you didn't have any, but maybe you had some health potions, you could do that. Maybe you don't have any of those potions, but maybe you're holding on to some gear that's not all that great, but maybe it has some plus regen. You could put those on. And maybe that regen would offset enough for the potion to wear off or for the poison to wear off and for you to survive. There's a lot of different ways to think about it, and so you have to get kind of creative sometimes with all of that, with how it goes and what you're going to do to survive. We've also got an item on the ground over here. We've got some poison darts. I'm going to use comma. I'm going to pick that up off the floor. Darts are a throwing thing. We're not going to put any skill points into throwing, but they're kind of nice to soften things up. And if one of those lands, it poisons something that can tick some damage away as things from a distance come up to us. So not horrible to pick up throwing things, particularly darts. Javelins are also, particularly silver javelins, very useful to be able to have in your arsenal, even if you don't have any points in throwing. So we've got a couple scrolls now. We're going to read some of these. I like reading scrolls in the early game just so I know what they are. We got a blink scroll. We teleported. That's awesome. Blinking becomes super important later in the game as well. There's some things when we get ready to leave the dungeon that having some blink is super useful. Also for getting out of really sticky situations, can definitely save a run. I think we'll pause for a quick second here because I want to explain, and I realized I didn't really go too much into depth about it in the first video here for our first attempt. What is the objective of this game? Right? Like we say we're going to do these 3 rune runs. What does that mean? Well, there's these runes that are scattered all throughout the dungeon, and they're in very particular places, okay? In order to be able to pick up the Orb of Zot, which is the end goal of every run, okay, you have to have at least 3 runes in your possession. Runes, like I said, are in very specific places scattered about the dungeon. We have to go to certain branches off the dungeon and complete the dungeon, complete those branches all the way down to their bottom floor and find the rune to pick it up. By doing that, and you need 2 of them to be able to get into the last area to get the 3rd rune, okay? By doing that, that allows us to then, when you have 3 of them, pick up the orb, and then it's a race to get all the way back up to the surface and out of the dungeon. And then you win. You are assigned a score based off of how well you do, items in your possession, gold that you're carrying, the number of turns it took you to do, right? It's a complicated calculation. You get a rank and a score. But more importantly, you get a win. There are 15 of these runes in the game. We only need 3 of them to get a win. And that's what we're going to be focusing on here as we do our species background quest, if you will, to try to get a win with every combination. 3 rune wins are not intrinsically easy. It's not like this is exactly a cakewalk every time. There are always surprises. There are times when I've been so sure with amazing artifact weapons and gear and 3 runes, and we get down there and get mutated to all end because I didn't have a good way to deal with it and just decimated on my way out of the dungeon. Um, Frustrating, but part of the appeal of the game, that you're never in just easy autopilot mode, at least not for very long when you're playing this game. You've always got to have kind of your wits about you and be thinking about every move. 15 rune runs are the cream of the crop, right? Like that's the best of the best. There's several players, and you can find them all over in the leaderboards. You can find them likely on the Discord. I don't spend much time on the Discord, but there is a Discord for all of this, and several of them are there. And you can find them obviously on Reddit as well, in the subreddit DCSS. They are amazing, amazing players. I want to be them when I grow up. But we will make some attempts. I think as the series goes along, and if there's interest in it, to do some 15 rune runs and maybe put some videos out about it. But the reason I'm kind of explaining a lot of how this game works and what the end goals are here is as we start knocking some of these out and we start going through it, obviously the gameplay is going to pick up quite a bit. In fact, what we'll probably do after we get the first win out of the way is I'll go away from the live narration and live commentary gameplay format and probably just post the recordings of various wins with different combinations with commentary over the top, right? As we get a little bit more familiar with the game, as we get some of the basics, just part of our fundamental foundation, right? We won't need to be doing so much explaining. I imagine folks will be more interested in just kind of watching how the run unfolded and what specifically, we did, how we handled certain situations, etc. But absolutely, leave me some feedback, some comments, etc. What you want to see, if you like what you're seeing, what we're doing. But let's get back into it. Let's keep playing. Smack these guys up. Using that asterisk that we keybound, the priority goes to attacking to clear stuff up, right? Versus picking items up on the ground. Obviously, very smart. Now, something I want to showcase here. We're standing over the top of. We'll move off it. There's an altar. Okay, this is where gods come from. This is a random altar. It's a faded altar. You see these in the early game. As we get down a couple more levels, we'll come to call it a altar map, if you will. More of a shrine of where you get to pick from some random gods that are generated. Several of the gods are guaranteed to be available by X level floor before you get down to it. And I don't remember the threshold off the top of my head, but for our purposes, we're going to be looking for for some specific gods for sure. The random ones, these can be fantastic. You can get exactly the god you're looking for. There's over 20 gods in the game, so insert Forrest Gump box of chocolate metaphor here. You never know. Never know what it's going to be. Some gods do not mesh with certain playstyles and combinations, right? And some get super pissed when you decide to stop worshiping them, and can have lingering curses and effects. So choosing a god as you play is super important. And as we've just auto-explored, this is one of the interesting, fun features of dungeon crawling. We fell into a shaft, so we're dropping one floor down. We have not finished floor 2. Hopefully it only takes us down one level. It did. Didn't drop us in a horrible place. But we're going to want to go back up and finish exploring that other level. So we're looking for stairs up now. We're going to kill some of these guys. Snake. Getting some levels, feeling stronger. See what we're looking at here. By the way, that was a capital M for spells. Notice the failure rate because we absolutely suck at spell casting. But we do have some spells at our disposal that we can memorize and start to use. Okay, so we're 4. One thing I do want to showcase, and actually maybe we'll do this here. If you use that exclamation mark from the skill menu, which is lowercase m, to bring up skills, use exclamation. Again, it's a toggle. See, we're in our training ratio. We're in our cost, what it costs to gain levels. And then here's our target. Now, target is where we can set a certain threshold at, okay, so axes. I'm going to hit equal to set a skill target. I'm going to select C for axes, and I'm going to say I want to stop gaining experience in axes at level 18. Skills can go up to a maximum of level 27. Okay, why 27? I don't know. it really grates on me a little bit because I like nice even numbers, right? Like if you're gonna set a cap on something, why couldn't it just be 30? But that's just how the game is. It's just designed that way. That's where the balance point is. It's 27. I'm stopping axes at 18. The reason for that is that the largest one-handed axe, because I like using an axe and a shield with a fighter, especially with a Minotaur, gets its maximum delay resistance at level 18, and that's why. So we don't have that particular axe in hand, but we're working towards that goal. And this way, by setting that target, I'm not going to waste any experience points putting it in there when I'm not going to see any additional benefit from it. More about that to come later. There's some stairs up. We're going to go back up here, and we're going to finish mapping out this floor. There's probably not too much left, although Crazy Uif, this is a set NPC monster guy. He exists. He's here. We're going to smack him down. Look at that. He hit pretty hard. We hit him pretty hard. Beat him down 2 hits because we had been over-leveling our axes and our fighting, so we had a good chance to hit him. He's got a Cloak of Willpower +2. That's fantastic. Love that. He always drops the Quarterstaff of Chaos, I believe. I don't believe he always drops the Cloak. I think the second item he drops is kind of random. So we're going to hit comma, pick what we want to pick up. I'm going to take that Cloak, and we're going to wear that Cloak. Q. There we go. And now if we go back to the percentage screen, we see that we're now wearing the cloak. You'll notice that that took off the scarf we're wearing. You can only wear one thing around the neck, so to speak, right? So it's either a cloak or it's a scarf. Willpower is useful. Fire and cold is useful later. We're going to keep that scarf, right? Because we'll probably want those resist later if we don't end up getting it on some rings or whatnot. But for the meantime, that's what we're going to be doing. Let's finish exploring this out. And that's it. We're done. So now let's drop down one level. Start exploring a little bit. Let's see if we pick up the pace just a bit. Get dungeon level 3 finished here. All these items. Yes, give me the gold. Kill the things. More killing. We got an orc. Now you notice when the enemies, and we'll pause on the next enemy here, when the enemies show up on the screen and then they show up in the bottom right over there, this one is, its name is all in white. It means it doesn't really present that much of a danger to us. When you saw the other enemy that was in that little kind of glass and emerald encased room, Crazy Uif, he was yellow. That meant he's a little bit more serious. They do come in red, and red is dead. It means they are very dangerous. It is subjective if you have ways of being able to take care of things from far away, and they don't have ranged attacks. Obviously, you can kind of snipe and pick things off. So it is a little bit subjective, but it's a good indicator as to whether or not you should be messing with it. And that color scheme does auto-adjust based off of various factors of your character build and whatnot. So here we are fighting multiple enemies at once. Because we've got that AoE, not really a problem. This is going to be a shrine to the Necromancer god, or, well, I don't remember exactly who this guy is, but I know he's not one that we were wanting to worship. That's just not our thing. Cleaning up. We're getting lots of items, which is awesome. Ooh, what is that? Oh, it's another altar to a god, and then it looks like we've got a teleport trap. Now, if we wait here, that snake should hit it, and it got teleported, which is hilarious. So that now lets us get into here, pick up that scroll, and we're done exploring. So this floor is completely gone. There is still a snake, though. That snake hit the teleport trap, but it's still somewhere on this level. So if we look at our map here, there's a stairway up and down up here to the north. We're just going to kind of click. Oh, see, there he is. He's back. So we're going to finish him off. Boom, and done. Let's come up here to where the stairs were. They're over this way. Boom. And we're going to hang out here. We're going to call that the episode, guys. So we cleared out another couple floors. As you can see, the pace is going to pick up a little bit as we kind of get through these. The pace will inevitably slow back down a little bit as we get into more complicated floors of the dungeon. We start getting to some of the branches that go off in other areas, and then we got to start making some decisions as to which way we want to go. There are definitely some different schools of thought as to what branches to go and tackle first to go get your first couple of runes. And some of that is randomized a little bit too, because not every branch is presented in every run of the game, but there are at least enough branches presented for you to be able to go and get those runes. So we're just going to have to see what we're presented with when we get down there, but hope you guys are enjoying the run. This has been your morning crawl with Old Bearded Gaming. We'll see you guys again next time. Take care.